Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question today comes from Sean, and it is, does Ubisoft care about the Siege community? I play on Xbox, so the only negatives are T-Cane and mouse and keyboard, but the numerous YouTube videos in the last week detailing hackers, exploits, and toxicity, there hasn't been a single post on Twitter or Facebook on Ubisoft's view of all of this. Do they even know what's going on inside of their game? Absolutely. I think they're probably painfully aware of these issues. Now, this isn't just exclusive to Rainbow Six Siege. Basically, every other multiplayer game out there is going to have these problems. It comes with the territory, but that doesn't mean they can't do everything they can to try to minimize it as much as possible. You mentioned mouse and keyboard on console. The more I hear about that community, the more it sounds like it's becoming a larger issue. If you want to be competitive, you need to use a mouse and keyboard, especially at those higher tiers, which of course isn't optimal. And so I think Ubisoft needs to be able to identify who are these players and take the appropriate actions. You also mentioned team killing. Now, this isn't something that Ubisoft is ever going to be able to eliminate from the game entirely, but I do think they need to take some extra steps to try to curb this kind of behavior. One idea that I really like, that I believe that other video games use, is that instead of just simply trying to punish and ban people that are being toxic, reward people who are having a positive impact on the community. If you're making good callouts, if you're simply just being a decent person, you're not raging, you're not being a toxic teammate, well then maybe at the end of the season, they could be rewarded. So at the end of a round, you could commend your teammates, maybe you could add in an honor system where if your honor or your commendation is high enough, by the end you get some cool rewards. Maybe some cosmetic items here and there, a couple of cool things that would enhance or bring value to the game, but then everyone else that has too low of an honor, they just simply don't get anything. And so there is this incentive to actually be a decent human being. Of course, this has its own problems. It's not a perfect system, but that's just it. There is never going to be a perfect system that Ubisoft implements that solves this problem entirely. What it really comes down to is us as a community. If we don't want to have toxicity, then every single one of us needs to make the mental note to not be toxic. I hear from a lot of people that will claim, oh, I don't team kill unless someone on my team does, and then I TK them back. It's like, aren't you just kind of perpetuating this cycle and making things worse? You keep doing this, everyone's like, oh, okay, I guess this is the norm, and then we're in the situation that we are today. And so if you do see someone TK, call them out on it, but don't go anything further than that. Report them for being toxic and then move on. If you then give in to the toxicity and instigate them further or whatever over voice chat, you're just adding to this issue, which I really do think is a community problem. All in all, though, I do agree with you that Ubisoft needs to do everything they can to try to minimize these issues as much as possible. Add in some incentives for being a decent person. Minimize or identify people who are being toxic and take the appropriate actions. But this is a two-way street. While Ubisoft is doing this, we also need to do our part as a community. The next question comes from Jack, and it is, what do you think about a defensive operator that has a different kind of impact nade that can break through reinforcements? This will let you make rotation holes with cover, or if you need to get onto the objective from a different angle. This is a question that I've been hearing a lot these last couple of weeks, and it does sound kind of appealing. One of the biggest downsides, of course, when you're playing on the defensive side is that if you need to get back onto the objective, if everything is reinforced and offense hasn't opened up a hole with a thermite or Habana, it limits the amount of ways for you to retake said objective. And so the idea of having a nade that just flat out opens one of these reinforcements sounds kind of appealing. The few issues that I have with this idea, though, is that it sounds ridiculously powerful. Being able to just open up a reinforcement out of nowhere is something that we just simply cannot do in Rainbow Six Siege currently. Everyone knows when a thermite or Habana is trying to breach on in. It's very obvious. It takes them a while, and you can adjust accordingly. Positioning is a pretty big component of Rainbow Six Siege. I know that's very obvious, obvious, and you're going to use the context clues around you to have the appropriate position. So if you notice that there's a bunch of wall reinforcements on your side, you know that you're not going to get hit from that angle. And I think most people be like, yeah, that makes sense. But all of a sudden, this guy goes through one of those reinforcements. All of that positioning and thinking and dynamic of what we have in Rainbow Six Siege is kind of thrown out the window. Another reason why I'm not entirely sold on this are different synergies with other operators, mainly Mira. Mira crouches down, places her gadget on one of the wall reinforcements, and then you have this brand new operator use their impact nade to open up a hole directly above it. That Mira is going to be very difficult to deal with. They are incredibly fortified. Now, of course, you're having to use two different operators to pull that off. You're going to have to use two resources to do that, and so that could be one limiting factor, but that does sound ridiculously powerful. On the other hand, though, I do like the idea of giving more tools for the defensive team to be able to change the map into their favor. If you didn't have a Mira, having a reinforced wall, now basically a small wall in front of you that you can duck behind, sounds really appealing. This is something that I really would like more in Rainbow Six Siege, more tools for the defensive team to manipulate the map into their favor, and this could be one way of going about it. And so all in all, let me know what you guys think about this concept. I'm not entirely sold, I'll be completely honest. Having an impact nade that can just go through reinforcements just sounds a bit too much, but I'd like to know what you guys think. The next question is, have you heard anything about the upcoming Battlefield 5 patch? With all of its problems, they don't seem to be updating it very often. Well, I will agree that Battlefield 5 absolutely does deserve criticism. It has its problems, it has its issues, but I don't think the lack or the frequency, especially recently, on their updates and their patches should be something that we should be too critical on. We have to remember that the holiday season was not too long ago, and like you and I and everyone else, we were all on vacation, including the DICE developers. All developers go on vacation, or most of them. They've got, of course, some staff on hand, but by and large, most people are enjoying their friends and family, and that's how it should be. And so, while yeah, it would be nice to have more content, frequent updates throughout the season, I don't think it's even reasonable to expect that. Now that they're back to work, though, we are going to be getting a patch, I believe, in the next couple of weeks, and there are some really cool things in the pipeline. One thing I'm really excited about is that they're going to be reworking the bipod system, where it's now going to be much more reliable to actually bipod your weapon. You may have noticed, especially when you're trying to bipod on a fence, for example, that it can be very unreliable. It seems like they're going to give you more leniency on what you can place your weapon on to gain that accuracy. So that's one amazing change. They're also going to be making some pretty good improvements to the vaulting system, which mirrors more like Mirror's Edge. I'd like to say that that pun was intended, but it absolutely was not. So the example that they gave is that you're going to be able to vault over things a lot faster. It's not going to take you as long, so you're not going to be as vulnerable. You're going to be able to move around the map a lot more fluidly. But also, if you want to, you can jump off of like the bridge on Narvik, for example, and land or grab the lip below. It's going to be a lot more intuitive, or something that you would kind of want to do in real life. And so I think that's also going to be a great improvement. On top of that, the new DLC is going to be coming out shortly with updates to new vehicles. I think we're going to be getting some more weapons. They're going to be changing or improving the company coins, bug fixes. So, well, yes, I do think that Battlefield 5 absolutely deserves its criticism. Hopefully, this next update is going to solve not only a lot of the core issues, but also improve some of the quality of life problems that we've been experiencing since release. But we're just going to kind of have to wait and see. The next question comes from the Batness, and it is, what do you think about a Kayed buff where his melee range is increased and his sword is actually used? Probably won't affect gameplay much, but at least show him using his sword. So this sounds really similar to what Ubisoft seemed like they were trying to do with Zofia and Ella, where they have a unique quirk that makes them unique. Ella, of course, when she's in the down but not out state, can activate her Gersmot mine and stun people around her. And then Zofia, she's able to flat out revive herself like Doc. She only has 1 or 5 HP, but I've seen games won or lost because of that. Now, admittedly, these two abilities don't really have that much impact on the game overall, but like I said, especially Zofia's, it does have some implications. Sometimes you win because of that. It's just simply having someone who's even at 1 HP can win you games. And so I think the criticism that a lot of people have brought up is, do we really want Ubisoft to add these quirks, small little details to make them a little bit more unique, just simply for the sake of trying to make them a bit different? I don't really know if that is necessary. And so when we move on over to Kayed, yeah, it'd be cool if he was using his sword, but I don't necessarily know if it would need an extended range. Do we want to, I mean, granted, he's a 3 armor, so it's not like he's going to be able to run around the map very quickly and just go try meleeing everyone, but do we really want someone to be able to just rely on a melee with this extended range? Like, I don't know if that is something that I want in Rainbow Six Siege. Now, that said, though, I do think it'd be really cool if he could use his sword as a melee. Adding in a unique cosmetic difference from all the other operators, I think would be a better way of going about it. Has no implication on the gameplay itself, but having that little distinction between all the others could be a much better way in the long term of handling these kind of quirks. But of course, that is just my 2 cents. Yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed today. Would you like Ubisoft to do more to try and solve the toxicity problem in Rainbow Six Siege? How would you like them to go about it? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.